dive into it. So, what's a business analyst? Who are we, and why do we actually exist within an organization? So, from the point of view of a lot of people, business analysts, we're what we call a middleman, okay, between the company or the business and the IT team, so or your developers or your technical team. So we go into an organization to evaluate the ways of working, so things that they're using or things that they're doing within a company. So it could be their systems, it could be their processes, and the ultimate goal is to find better ways of working and making improvements to that process or systems. Okay. um the beauty of business analysis really is that it's required and needed in every industry and every field. So you, as long as there's a change that's required within an organization, as long as they're going through some sort of change, theoretically speaking, a business analyst is needed to help guide them and help them implement that change. So it's quite it's a role that is quite diverse, and it's a role that is quite lucrative as well because of that, because we're not tied down to an industry. We're able to operate across board, and depending on sort of like who you are, the industry you operate in, um sort of like the level of business analysis in terms of your experience wise as you're going through your journey, you would find yourself working as different types of BAs, and also earning different sort of like average salaries, which we'll go through shortly. And typically speaking, a BA would operate within what we call a business change life cycle. Okay, so any changes goes through a typical life cycle from start to end, and because we are what I like to call angels of change, because we're angels of change, because we're bringing in change into an organization, so we have to operate within that business change life cycle. So that's sort of like what we do. So in terms of average earnings into business analysis, okay, so um depending on, again, years of experience, depending on, and when I say years of experience, we're talking about your actual years of experience, how many years you have on your CV that we can have a look at and call out all of these transferable skills that you've got to play with. You can find yourself landing within sort of like these categories. Okay, so we have sort of like our junior BAs, our mid-level BAs, which majority of you are going to find yourself sort of like in that region, and then you have your senior or lead BAs. A junior BA, typically speaking, is someone that we say has up to 2-3 years of experience. Okay, up to on the CV, up to 2-3 years experience. We're typically speaking, you will say you're a junior BA. So you'd find yourself earning sort of like on average up to that 45,000 pounds a year. It could be lower, it could be higher, depending on the industry and where you're located in the UK. And as a contractor, we're talking sort of like up to that 250 pounds a day. Okay, although junior BA contract roles are few and far in between. You don't really get too many of them pop up on the job boards. You get a few a year, but it's not as common as a junior BA to go down the contracting route. Then you have your mid-level BAs, which is 3 to 5 years experience on your CV that we can utilize, and your earnings there is up to 55,000 pounds a year. Again, it could be more, it could be less. This is average across the UK. Um, and as a contractor, we're talking up to 450 pounds a day. But then again, it could be more, it could be less, depending on years of experience, depending on industry, depending on location in the UK as well. And then we've got sort of like our senior BAs or our lead BAs, which we earn sort of like on the higher side, higher earnings bracket in the UK. So on average 73,000, 74,000 pounds a year. I've spoken to some recruiters recently offering 96 figures. And then also as a contractor, sort of like in and around that 700 pounds a day. It could be, again, that's on average. It could be like 550. Probably commonly, what you see commonly is probably more around 600, 550, 650. But again, depending on the industry, like financial, what do you call it, investment, FX, um, uh, army, like if you have like NATO qualifications in something niche, you could earn up to £1,000 a day, even in some cases. So it's quite a business analysis or business analyst role. It's quite a lucrative role, right? In terms of we get paid quite well, and on the other side of things, in terms of what we actually do within an organization, it's quite impactful, right? You actually see what you're doing come to life quite well, which is one of the things that I actually personally like about being a BA. I'm not just a body within the organization, just keeping it, just churning it, keeping the lights on. I actually see what I'm doing impact, our day-to-day activities. So yeah, I quite enjoy that bit. Okay. Any questions so far?
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm,
You said after this training, most of us will fit into the mid-level role, right?
mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering how this happens. If you say we need like 3 to 4 years experience and we're just getting trained for 3 months, can you throw
Yeah,
more light on that?
yeah. So basically, everyone's joining after the 3 months or within the 3 months will start to sort of like take different shapes, right? So, and mainly it depends on your CV in terms of how many years of experience you actually have working in general. Yeah. So let's say, depending on age, your where you've worked in the past and stuff like that, you have, for argument's sake, 7 years experience that you've worked so far, right? We can have a look at that and we can call out a lot of transferable skills that you've got. And because the CV, for us to be a market, someone that the market is looking for, the CV has to be quite skills based, right? That's the only way that we go through the ATS robots, because a lot of recruiters uses ATS to screen CVs. So now we need to like um modify the CV and make it skills based, right? Sort of like BAize it. So we'll play with your experience and sort of like call out those BA skills within the previous experiences that you've worked. So that's why most people, generally speaking, they've worked for at least 3 years, you know, at the very least. Most people have, but some people are brand new out of uni and they will fall into the junior sector or the junior side. So everyone's but we tend not to like make the CV too crazy and you're going like senior. Although we've had people go for senior BA roles as well, it's fine. If you get called up for those type of roles, we will coach you accordingly. And most roles that you will just see out there is just within that bracket because they want someone that has some sort of experience. They don't want to like coach you from ground up again. So most roles, if you go online and just search business analyst role, they will not necessarily say we need someone with 3 years experience or 10 years experience. But when you look at the salary bracket, you would have an understanding of exactly where you where it falls within this range. So that's what it is, and that's the way we do it. So we'll look at your CV and we'll sort of like advise that accordingly based on the number of years of experience that you've got, where you see yourself fit. But most people tend to have already done at least have 3 years experience. Hope that answers it, Douglas.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. So let's simplify business analysis, guys, for you guys. So let's break it down. So we can bring it back to our normal day-to-day activities. So let's think of a BA as a bartender. All right. So you are the client in terms of the fact that you're the one that wants the drink. The business analyst is the bartender, and the developer is the mixologist. Okay, the person that prepares the order. So think about it, it could be anything. So it could be that you enter a coffee shop. The barista is the BA. You're the client. The machine, the coffee machine is the developer. But there will be some, some people would half developer, half machine system. But you actually have people that will use the system to make the car, to coffee. You want to buy a car. Chris will be the business analyst because he's the one actually gathering information from you. You're the client. BMW in this case, or the robots within BMW, they're the developers, right? So I say that to say that we've actually been doing BA work partly within our normal day to day. We just don't know it, right? Because we're constantly giving and taking requirements from every aspect of of our life, right? So in terms of the bartender example, typically speaking, the client will approach, the bartender, and excuse me, I would like to order a drink, um, the bartender will capture the statement of needs of the client. What would you like? So that's an open-ended question to understand exactly what the customer is looking for. So, but customer says something like, "I would like gin and tonic, no ice, and two lemon slices, please." Most likely, the bartender will take down the requirement in or many formats, right? So they can write it down, they can key into the system, they might just make a mental knowledge of it, but they would document the requirement in one way or the other. Then they take that information that they've captured, and then they will pass it on to someone to mix that drink, or they could also be the mixologist. But let's say for this example, there's a third person involved in this scenario, the mixologist. So the BA, the bartender, passes the requirements that they've captured from the client, yourself, to the mixologist, who's the developer. They look at it. If they have any questions, they go back to the BA and ask and clarify their questions. Now, I'm not quite sure this is, or can you ask a bit more information around, or we don't have XYZ. If they need any clarity, they would go back to the bartender. The bartender would feed that back to the client and understand a bit more around what's required. If everyone's happy, then the mixologist goes away and actually makes the drink, right? They would create that gin and tonic, no ice, with two lemon slices. They pass that information or the product back to the bartender. That bartender at that point will do some sort of like user acceptance testing. They would have a look at the drink, make sure that it looks like it's gin and tonic. It doesn't look like Hennessy for, it does, at the very least they might not taste it or know what it tastes is, but at least they know this is a, white drink. There's two lemon slices on there and there are no ices. Like, okay, from what we can see, it looks like the requirement has been met. And they pass that product back to the client, who then takes the drink. First thing you do as a client is taste your drink as well. So you're sort of like confirming that what I've ordered is what I've been given. And then everyone sort of like goes about their business. So we are constantly giving and taking requirements, which is one of the key aspects of the role of a BA. Okay, we are giving requirements and we are taking requirements. We're change angels. Okay, so we are helping people, or we are helping the organization understand what the statement of needs are of our clients and of our stakeholders. So, like I said, a BA operates within a change, right? And there is what we call the business change life cycle that a project, typically speaking, would go through. So we have five key stages within this. We have the alignment stage, the definition stage, the design stage, the implementation stage, the realization stage. This um, uh, business change life cycle closely lines up with the project life cycle as well. Okay, which is initiation, analysis, design, development, go live, right? So they closely line up, they're closely aligned together, because if you're implementing a change, is because most likely you're doing it within a project in most cases, like 9 times out of 10. So the two have to sort of like work hand in hand, right? So as a BA, you need to be aware of both. the business change life cycle and the product like or the project life cycle. And one of the things that we coach you guys on as part of the internship, as part of your meetings with Kenny and stuff like that, is it would walk you guys through the key deliverables of a business analyst within a typical project life cycle. And the reason for that is if you get your head around that quite well and you understand the entire life cycle, the end-to-end life cycle from initiation all the way to go live, and you understand the key deliverables that you're expected to do or you're expected to deliver within that life cycle, interview questions becomes a bit easier for you because any interviewer will be asking you questions within the project life cycle. Can you give me an example of when you've done XYZ? But it will, typically speaking, will fall within one of those stages of the life cycle. So if you can link it back, you'll be able to then talk about what your deliverables are. But again, we will coach you accordingly on that. So like I said, we have 5 key stages of the business change life cycle. So typically speaking, a BA needs to understand exactly why am I here? What am I doing there within the organization? So it's quite important to actually understand what we mean by business change, right? So, question to the floor. Can anyone give me a definition for business change? So if someone asks you what is business change, what would you say? Anyone can answer. Or I'll call out names.
They're basically like alterations in like the way a company does certain things aimed at possibly like improving their process or improving a product.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, very, very simply put, you've nailed it on the head there. So I would define business change as uh, the process of modifying the way the business operates or the way the business uses its processes and systems so that it can achieve its goals and objectives, right? So you're modifying the current ways of working and you're changing something about what they're doing. So it could be something small, it could be a big change, but we're changing ways of working. So a business change is modifying the ways of working uh, 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 um, so that we can achieve our set our goals and objectives. So the life cycle, so the ADDIR, alignment, alignment, definition, design, implementation, and realization, allows us to be able to module our way through that change. Whether it's a minor change or a major change, it allows a BA to be able to actually follow through and don't miss out any key stages within the change. So we start with sort of like that initial stage, alignment, right? So this is when we go into understanding the why, right? You're understanding the business environment, you're understanding the business strategy, the architectural the architecture of the organization. So this is when you're just starting as a business analyst within an organization and you're finding your feet, right? So you'll be reading a lot of documents, you'll be bringing yourself up to speed in terms of what they've done before, the why. You'll be reading the business case. You might be reading the project brief. You're familiarizing yourself with what am I doing here, right? So we need to be aware of both the internal impact or the internal things that we've done, and also whether there are any external elements as well that we need to be aware of. So we're basically considering everything. You're speaking to a lot of stakeholders just to understand, build a picture around what the pain points are, right? So you're clearly understanding the business problem and sort of like its impacts across the organization. So you're defining that, and also you want to understand the business goals and vision. So where are they going with this, right? With this organization, so that any change that we're doing has to align with it, right? So, like I said, I'm a cybersecurity business analyst. So typically speaking, when I join an organization, they would say something like, "We're looking to align ourselves more with ISO 2007 20071, or we're looking to align ourselves more with NIST or SOX regulation, or we've been fined by XYZ regulator, and we've been given all this audit failing point, and we've been given a year to do it. Right. So the reason for the change or where we're moving to would drive the kind of recommendations that we give as as a business analyst, and now we help them sort of like go through that change. So that initial stage is about that understanding. Then we go to the definition stage, which is the next stage on, where we're actually defining the elements that will support the change, right? So we're understanding our current ways of working. So what we call as is analysis. Yep. So AS, I'll put into the chat window. ASIS, as is analysis. So that's one of the buzzwords that you'd be hearing quite a lot. We need someone, or you'll be seeing quite a lot in job specs. We need someone that will come in and do assist analysis, to be analysis. So basically, understand our current ways of working and understand what we want to do in the future. Understand today and tomorrow. Understand day and night, right? That's essentially that's all it is. Speaking to people, understand our current ways of working and why that's giving us problems, and that, or why we need to move away from that current ways of working, and understanding the future ways of working, so that we can understand the differences between the two and start to move across to the future ways of working based on recommendation. So we want to define exactly what the change is, and how we're currently operating as an organization, the impact of the proposed change, who's going to be impacted, and also the risks and benefits of that change. Okay, so again, we don't make anything up, right? We speak to people, we understand from their perspective exactly how that change is going to be impacting them. Once we've done that, then we can go into the design phase. Okay, a BA, typically speaking, don't own the design phase, but we have deliverables, key deliverables that we need to deliver, we need to bring to life as part of the design phase. So before anything gets implemented, we need to develop a design, right? We need to basically show how the new system or how the new ways of working is going to operate. So our to be. Okay, so we, typically speaking, will be doing things like process mapping out the way the new ways of working is going to operate. We might be doing wireframing and wireframing out the new ways of working, or we might be even working with our testing team to develop sort of that test scenario and the test cases that we're going to test once the implementation has gone in. So we're designing the future ways of working for the organization. So we need to make sure that we're balancing the business expectation and the technical guys' expectation quite well at this point. So we'll make sure that whatever the technical guys are planning to deliver will definitely fit into the goals and objectives of the business. Remember, at the start, we say we're a middleman between the business and the technical team. Okay, so we get paid to basically handhold people, but handled quite well, right, in terms of bringing that change to life. Then we have the implementation stage, where the developers actually get into the nitty-gritties of things, and they're building, our new ways of work. I keep saying developers because most project change these days has to do with systems, right? Especially with artificial intelligence now. A lot of clients I've spoken to recently, in terms of the solutions that they're looking for, they are talking about AI integrated systems. We want to make sure that we utilize AI and this and that, right? So we need to be familiar with change. So even changes in the environment impacts the sort of the systems that we're bringing into companies and our recommendations. So we need to make sure that whatever they are implementing is clearly aligning with the business goals and objectives. So a BA's job at this in this stage is to support, right? We support, make sure that we our requirements that we've captured, the developers are definitely building towards it. Then, things goes well, we go live, then we have to do realization phase. So like what we call benefit realization. So we've set out to achieve XYZ. Have we actually been able to do that? We've set out to, in my own case, for example, we've set out to reduce the number of, or the amount of time it takes for our SOC analyst, our security operations centers analyst, to respond to a priority one incident, right? So a priority one incident could be something like a brute force attack. So someone, an hacker using a combination of passwords, trying many passwords over, many times to then gain access into your environment. So like maybe they will try like 40, 50, 60 combinations of passwords before they actually get in. And once they're in now, and we've detected that, so we might have like as part of the requirements that they've given to the BA that they're looking for in the solution, could be something like, we want the solution to flag and alert the security team whenever we have a situation where there's been, let's say, 7 unsuccessful password attempts followed by 1 successful login. Or it could be, some organizations are even as strict as they would do as 5. Anytime there's been 5 unsuccessful login attempts followed by 1 successful login attempt, should be flagged up as a potential hack or a potential problem. So I will go away and I'll write that requirement in a way. We'll go through requirements in a lot more details tomorrow. But I'll write it in a way that my developers can understand, or the vendor can understand, and then we will test that. It will make sure that, okay, that thing works. So now, let's say we've set out, in my case, to reduce the number of time it takes to, see a priority one ticket and respond to it. So a P1 ticket, typically speaking, we'll say needs to be, in security, has to be resolved within 4 hours. Okay, it's a P1. That means all hands on deck. Everyone drop what you're doing, get on this incident and fix it within 4 hours. P2, 1 day. P3, 3 days. P4 could be a month, right? Because it's not prioritizing. It's there, we know about it, but it's not really, impacting anything as such. So a BA's job, as part of that alignment and definition stage, is to build those requirements out so that developers can build exactly what the business needs are, so that it will align with what we're trying to do. So at the end, we want to do benefit realization. We basically want to go through what we've implemented and see whether or not, because at the start you would have set out some goals that you want to achieve as part of your business case. So that's why the business case is in the middle, right? It touches everywhere because that's sort of like the heart of the project. Okay, so the business case, typically speaking, is written by the PM or by like a group of senior stakeholders. But don't be surprised if you start working and they get you to start writing business cases as well. So one of the skills that you will be leaving us with is how to write business cases, because in a lot of cases it falls onto the BAZ, especially if you're a permanent member of staff. They might get you involved earlier on in the project, and you be involved in sort of like drafting that business case, and the why and the what and the who and the where, and the how. You'll be involved in drafting that. So we will make sure that we'll coach you accordingly on that. So realization stage is basically also just doing the wrap up, making sure that what we've set out to do, we've done it, and also learning for the future. Okay, so but each one of these stages, there are key artifacts that a BA is expected to deliver, and that's sort of like what you will go through in that internship. You would go through that entire life cycle and be able to understand exactly what are the key things for you as a BA to deliver. Any questions? Okay, I think that's a no. So business analysts, we've been and you will still see um different types of BAs out there, right? You'd see various type of roles out there. So what does that actually mean for you as a BA, right? Where do we find ourselves as a business analyst? So although the term analyst or analysis is used in many different contexts, right? So um, Abby just said earlier that she's a KYC analyst. Um, Christian is a service advisor, but customer service analyst. Um, Ola is a project admin, right? You can throw analyst behind it. The word analyst is used so loosely these days that it can get it can start to lose meaning, right? So what we want to do is refocus us as business analysts in terms of what that means for us. So broadly speaking, we can categorize the term analysis or the term analysts under three main headings under the BA world. So we have what we call the strategic analysis and definition. We have the business analysts, and then we have the IT systems analyst. So what does that mean? So our strategic business or our strategic analysis and definition, typically speaking, we're talking senior management team or a senior BA or like a lead BA or BA manager, right? So we are what we're called strategists. Okay. So we're focusing on ways of working into the future, like 5-year plan, 10-year plan. So often you would be supported, or you as BAs will support like a business consultant or like a Deloitte, a KPMG, Accenture, PwC, Ernest Young, and the likes. Typically speaking, you would support those guys because they're strategists. They're coming into the organization, understanding ways of working because they want to build a strategy, like a target operating model. Yeah, which is one of the things that we're going to look at tomorrow, a TOM. So they want to build futuristic or future ways of working. So let's say, for argument's sake, BMW has a goal of becoming the #1 electric car making company in the world, right? That's their goal. That's their vision, for argument's sake. Now, someone needs to build out that strategy for us. How we're going to go from what we're doing now to actually becoming, displacing Tesla, displacing BYD, and becoming the #1 electric car making company in the world. Because if we continue to do what we're doing today, would we be able to achieve that? Most likely the answer is no, because we're quite diesel and petrol based. Yeah, we've got some electric cars, we've got some hybrid, but we're not a fundamental electric car making company. So we cannot continue to do what we're doing today. We need to change something, and we need to change it sort of like periodically over the next 10 years to become that #1, right? So we'll set out the goal. So a BA support this work usually because you would have senior managers or consultants coming in to do this. So now once they've like sort of like developed the strategy and they start to make tomorrow, or tomorrow start to become today, essentially, because for you to achieve that set out thing tomorrow, we need to start implementing it today, essentially. So we'll call that the tactical. We call, so there's two words, or there's some words that we use, which I will put into the chat window. So we have what we call the tactical approach and strategic approach. Strategic. And that tactical approach, they might also say we're doing transition, and the strategic approach, they will say we're doing transformation. So again, those are some words that you might start to see, or you start to hear, or you start to actually hear people use them within your current workplace. So they say, no, this is a tactical project, which means we're delivering something today that would impact immediate ways of working, right? It's a tactical project this is a transition. So basically we're just moving. So an example would be, let's say we are going for an upgrade project. Yeah. So we want to upgrade our applications, or in my case, we want to upgrade the underlying infrastructure that applications run on. Okay, so let's say Abby, give me an application that you use at work. I will use that as an example.
Um, okay, LexisNexis for
Lexus, yeah,
screening.
that's a good one. Yep, LexisNexis. Okay, so typically speaking, LexisNexis within a company would operate on an infrastructure, right? You might not know what the infrastructure is because you don't care. You're the end user, right? So you only care about the GUI, the front end, right? But there's a back end to Nexus, right? That the data sort or that gets his information from, the upgrade happens on, and there will be different versions of LexisNexis. So let me check LexisNexis, right? Which is a big KYC
A screening tool.
screening tool. Yeah, thank you. That's what I was looking for. So like you have LexisNexis Plus. They're integrated with AI. LexisNexis Plus AI. So now let's say we want to we want to go from the Plus to the AI, right? So an upgrade needs to happen. We need to upgrade something within the organization. So we could say something like we as a business analyst, you're working on that upgrade. So now you would go in and understand how many people are using the current versions of LexisNexis, when is the best time for us to do the upgrade, and so on and so forth, right? So they can say, oh, you know what, if we upgrade LexisNexis, that might mean that we need to upgrade all these other systems as well because they're integrated. So now we say, yeah, but we just want to do a transition approach or a tactical approach. We don't want to touch the other systems. We only want to upgrade LexisNexis. The other systems are not in scope. And then you start to go through this back and forth. But if we do that, we are gonna break X, Y, Z. So that's not where BA comes in, the analysis. So what does LexisNexis touch, right? So we want to understand that so that we can do that upgrade either in silo, or maybe we can find the other versions of it. So I've been in situations where we set out to do one thing, but that one thing blows out to be 20 or 30 things, because the minute we change that one thing, we have a ripple effect within the organization, right? And now versions are out of date. Communication, there was one that I did. So I upgraded Cisco as a backend Cisco. So maybe Douglas might know a little bit about Cisco because of his engineering background. I upgraded one of the backend Cisco solutions within the company, and this was when I first got involved in infrastructure, right? So I didn't really understand low-level designs and stuff like that. I just went into the company. We're upgrading Cisco, fine. I've done my analysis. It looks good, and then yeah, we're gonna do it on a Saturday. Fine. We upgraded Cisco. Everything was fantastic. Cisco was upgraded, no problem. Why am I getting phone calls Sunday night at 4 a.m. that there's a P1? What do you mean? Swift is not working. This is not working. Accurate wasn't working. These are applications. Fusion Risk is not working. This and that was not working. I'm like, what happened? They were like, there's a change that happened over the weekend. So basically what they did was they looked through ServiceNow, looked at all the changes that went live over the weekend, and basically called everyone that implemented the change onto a call at 4 a.m. on a Sunday night. Like, we need to understand what you changed, because the bank is on hold, right? 9 a.m. tomorrow, we cannot pay people. Like, oh shit. So analysis is quite important, right? So, and it's just because, one, they didn't have a solution architect, so we didn't have like a low-level design of what touches what. So basically, we all rolled back our change because we didn't know which one broke it, because we didn't expect Cisco to like break all of those systems. And then we went back, and everyone sort of like started talking about like what could have, and then we found out it was because there's this integration that they've got within this company, like literally one account. They had one account that is shared across all of this application, which is bad practice. And when we upgraded Cisco took out that account because the password was weak and they hadn't been changed in a minute. So it took, not that it took it out, but like it stopped using it, which meant that that account could not log into all these systems to like do what it does normally does. Like, it carries information from XYZ places to it. So they all just went down. They didn't like it. They just like, what's this? This is foreign object. Shut down. Like defense mode. They just put themselves in defense mode and shut down. Like no one could get in. Right. So then we like go back into like, okay, we need a high level design. This is what we're going to do. Now we need a low level design, understand exactly what touches what, and then we have to bring those systems down first, then upgrade the password, make the password a lengthy password for that. And also now we put that account into a, what we call a password vault, so that no one actually now knows the password. It auto rotates its own password, make sure that it's always complex. That then feeds back into Cisco. Cisco then pushes it out to all the applications. Then they then use it. So we have to like basically reverse engineer the whole thing, the whole change. So a change that was meant to take it was meant to take 1 week, like planning and doing it 1 week. We ended up spending 3 months on that one change before it went live, right? So you can find yourself in, situations like that, but you need to be able to like understand. So what I'm trying to say is doing your groundwork initially makes your life easy, right? And no one knows it all. Don't get me wrong. No one knows it all. It's just about talking to people and understanding exactly who is going to be impacted. And sometimes you don't even capture. You think you've captured everything, and there'll be one team somewhere that no one knows about that uses the system, and then they'll make the most noise. It happens, right? So, but we'll try as much as possible to guide against that. So, the strategic ways of working, typically speaking, falls outside our remit. But if you're working for a consultancy, you might find yourself in that role. Okay, so what does that mean? It's not different to what we do on a lower scale in terms of on the day-to-day activities, which is we understand what today looks like. We understand our current ways of working. We'll consider the internal and external environmental impact. So, our current ways of working, who are the users, and who are the what do they use it for, so on and so forth. Who are our vendors externally, who are the regulators externally, and so on and so forth. So we understand all those forces that is impacting our current ways of working. We review our current ways of working against what we've set out that we want to achieve. So in BMW's case, becoming number one electric car making company in the world, we consider our current ways of working, compare it against what we're trying to do. If we continue to do what we're doing today, we would achieve our set goals and objectives. No, okay, we need to come up with different ways of working. So we will come up with alternative approaches. We would sit down with our senior stakeholders, review all the alternative approaches, all the recommendation, and then we'll make a recommendation. So review all the options available to us, make a recommendation, and then we start to implement the most viable strategy. So tomorrow becomes today. And we don't do anything different on the lower end, which is immediate deliverables. But these guys are just doing it on a larger scale. Like we're talking we're planning for 10, 15 years. Right. So strategists. Then you have your IT systems analyst. Okay. So again, you might start to see roles like IT system BA online when you start to look for roles. Essentially, they're looking for someone that has a good understanding of infrastructure, right? Or a good understanding of sort of like how the IT department works. So we've had some students that they have worked as first line IT service desk. So those kind of roles just naturally attracts them because they already work in IT and they understand sort of like hardware, software, and this kind of things. And like they've been involved in and around systems requirements, right? And I've worked in as infrastructure business analyst in the past as well, so I have a good understanding of how sort of like the infrastructure layer works, and stuff like that. So again, you can fall into it by chance, just because you got a role and you're working on it, implementing something for the IT department, and before you know, you start to, as you're doing that role, and as you're moving across IT, you find yourself more and more in deep diving into the systems. That does happen, right? But typically speaking, your IT systems analysts, they are focusing on IT system specifications. Okay, so like infrastructure layer, cloud, on-prem, so Windows, Linux, iOS, and so on and so forth. Storage requirements, and so on. Like they're focusing on sort of like those technical requirements, and how data flows, and modeling, those kind of things. So again, you might not find yourself within this role, but if you have IT knowledge and sort of like that technical background, you can. But where we find ourselves mainly is in that BA role, right? So, and the BA role has gone through many, many, many changes, and is still going through changes. Okay, we have what we call different types of BAs out there. Yeah. So we have what we call the business analyst, or the enterprise business analyst. We have the technical business analyst, or back to that previous one, business systems analyst. We have the digital business analyst. So you start to see a lot of this into the in on job specs today. They're looking for a digital BA. Like, what does that mean? Who is a digital BA? You've got the project business analyst, which I will explain in a sec, and then you have the sort of like what we call the proxy product owner. So what are the differences between all of these? So an enterprise BA is that first people that we spoke about. So you're basically a business analyst on the business layer, right? The top layer. You're driving enterprise-wide goals and objectives. Okay, so you're working on the senior level layer, working with senior stakeholders, the big boys, to build out strategies and ways of working going forward. Okay, what we need to do to get to our set out vision and mission. So on the high level, your technical business analyst or your business systems analyst, typically speaking, is someone that sits within IT. Okay, and they're working on delivering IT solutions, technical solutions. So I would be considered as a technical BA because I work within the cybersecurity team in IT. Okay, and I deliver cybersecurity solutions. I don't code, so don't get it mixed up. When you see technical BA roles, right, and say they're looking for a technical business analyst, actually read the jobs. Don't just look at the title and ignore it, because the word technical is again, it's also loosely used, right? So you could be technical because you've got a very good Excel skills, and you can do pivots, you can do HLOOKUPs, you can do VLOOKUPs, you can do all these weird and wonderful things, right? Within, you could do if statements, you can write formulas, you can do macros, you can use the VBA part of Excel, and that will make you technical, because not many people know how to do that. You can be technical because you have an understanding of the technical solutions, right? So the solutions that I bring in, typically speaking, are technical solutions because they're cybersecurity solutions. So, but I have good understanding of them. But I don't know SQL. Well, I do know SQL, but I don't write SQL. I can read SQL, but it doesn't entice me to ever write one. All right. So you could be technical because you have SQL knowledge and Python knowledge and Tableau knowledge, right? So actually read why they're technical. So you could be a technical BA or business systems analyst working within the IT department. That's what makes you technical. You're working within IT, right? And delivering IT solutions. You're not like a business BA that you're implementing business solutions, right? So there's a difference. So you have your business teams. So, okay, an example would be you're coming in and you're implementing Salesforce, right? That's a business system. Salesforce is used by the business. It's not used by IT. You're implementing Salesforce, you're implementing a marketing solution, you're implementing an HR solution. Those are business systems, right? But IT systems, so let's say you're coming in and you're implementing, for example, the vCenter, right? The virtual center that all our servers operate in. You're implementing, in my case, is IT security solutions. You're implementing anything that's used by the IT team, right? ServiceNow. Those are IT solutions, So that would be the difference. A digital BA kind of like just covers everything. But what we're saying is that a digital BA is someone that's implementing online platforms, right? Like SaaS-based solutions, digital services, e-commerce platforms, websites. But it's loosely used now. We all call ourselves digital business analysts because we're all implementing IT solutions and they're digital systems, right? So we kind of all call ourselves digital business analysts. But yeah, typically back in the days when we say someone's a digital BA, they're focusing on sort of like enhancing online platforms and digital services. Then you have your project BA. A project BA, which actually operates as currently in one of my roles, is essentially someone that focuses solely on gathering requirements that align solely to the project objectives, right? So we're not worrying about how the IT guys is going to deliver that. That's their own problem. Solely working with the business, capturing requirements to align with the project, and then I pass that to the IT guys. They have their own BA that then takes my requirements and then breaks it down into IT stuff, and then they will deliver it. How they do it, what they do, I don't care, right? But again, that depends on the role, depends on the organization and how they operate, right? You could find yourself doing all of this as well in one. So again, each role is different. That's part of the beauty of it. Then we have what we call the proxy product owner. So one of the methodologies that we use as a BA is Agile. So we have Agile and Waterfall, two key methodologies. If you're working in Agile, most likely you would work with a product owner. The product owner in Agile, theoretically speaking, owns the requirement, but practically speaking, a BA does. So that's why we become proxy product owners, right? So a product owner, typically speaking, will be a senior member of staff. All they're caring about is getting value for money for the product that they're bringing in, right? So that they're the owner of the product. But they still need someone like yourselves to come in and capture requirements and translate those business needs into actionable requirements that someone can deliver. So you would assume the role of that product owner because they're meant to own the requirements, but they don't have the skill sets for it. So you become a proxy of them. And a natural transition for a BA that works in Agile is to become a product owner. It's a natural transition to move up to the product owner role. And now you actually be doing the BA and the product owner part of things, right? So you have a variety of business analyst roles. So when you're applying for roles, please don't just put business analyst. No, we're applying across board, right? We could be called process analysts, right? That's another way. We could be called business consultants. Many different ways, different names that we're used, we're called, but these are sort of like the main ones. So business analysts, we are the middleman between the business and the IT. Okay. Usually we start with understanding the why. Why am I here? What's the problem? What's the problem that needs to be solved? Okay. You want to familiarize yourself with existing documentation and stuff like that. So one of the first things I always ask is, can you give me access to SharePoint, right? Most companies use SharePoint these days. Can you give me access to SharePoint, right? I want to like read up on what we've done so far so I can bring myself up to speed. And it's very, very rare that the actual problem has been identified before you get there. Very, 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 very rare. I would say 97% there's a chance that they haven't actually identified the problem. Because the reason for that is because the natural way people think is to give you symptoms. Okay. They will tell you the why, the what has happened, not the why has happened. So they will give you the system is very slow. Um, we're not able to log in between this time and that time. They will give you the symptoms, right? So, or they would have given the symptoms, like the when they're trying to define the problem statement, they'd usually give you symptoms, the what. But your job is to actually understand the why, because we want to fix the why, yeah, not the what. We want to fix the why. We want to recommend against the why. So you want to go in and ask your open-ended questions. There's a notion of by the time you ask 5 whys, you actually understand the root cause of the problem. Yeah. So we want to understand. That's what we want to do. So BA's job is basically to not believe what they've told you in the first place. You want to take an holistic view. When we will talk about a module tomorrow that gives you that holistic view into understanding what the problem is, right? You want to consider people, product, people, process, system, the company itself, right? How do they operate, right? I've worked for many industries, and they all have different ways of working. So, like the way the charity works is different from the way the government works. It's different from the way financial services works. It's different from the way private banking works. It's different from the way public sector, like something like Royal Mail works, right? It was even yesterday that I found out that they're privatizing Royal Mail, because I had an interview yesterday with Royal Mail, and they were like talking about this Polish guy that's bought like a big stake in Royal Mail. Like, well, they didn't say that. They didn't tell any of us that. Like, it's getting privatized. Like, but that now the guy is trying to change their ways of working, which is why they needed a BA to come in to like understand their mess. And the way they were talking about it sounds like it's gonna be too busy for me. So I'm not gonna take the job. I don't like being busy. I was like, they're gonna be too busy. So I'm gonna tell them politely no on Monday. Like, sorry, I thought about it, but nah, thanks. Plus, they want me to come into the office 3 days a week, which is not gonna happen. No way, Jose. So, BA, we go in. Key principles that you need to understand is we need to make sure that we investigate the situation, guys. Understand the why. What am I doing here? You want to make sure you define your problem statement. Very, very important. You need to be working against something. Define the problem statement, and you look for ways to improve that ways of working, right? And make sure that you capture your requirements. We'll look through all of this. This will make sense, and the how you do this will make sense as we go through these 2 days and the 3 months. Okay, so we don't just identify the symptoms. Okay, please, you want to get to the root cause, the why. Very, very important, right? We don't want to put plaster over something that actually needs surgery. That's what we're trying to say here. If you need surgery, we want to give you surgery. We're looking for different ways of improvement. It doesn't have to be IT system change, although a lot of our improvements comes from IT system changes, but it doesn't have to be. Okay. Provide options, not solutions. Okay, we're not solution architects. That's not our job. So very, very important, guys. I've been in situations where they're looking at me for the solution. I'm like, I can give you recommendations. It's not my job to pick a solution for you. Like, why? But we brought in as SME. Yeah, SME of giving you recommendations. Right? Option 1 means this. Option 2 means this. Option 3 means this. Option 4 means this. This is how much option 1 is going to cost you, and 2 and 3 and 4. This is the risk associated with 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you make a decision. I know which one I want them to choose, and I would have structured my options in that way that they will choose the one I want them to choose. But ultimately, I want them to make the decision, the stakeholders, like the key stakeholders, because I don't want to be in a situation when they say, but I also just to choose that solution, and now it's not working. It's not your problem. All right, you have to make the decision. So, and always remember, do nothing is always already an option, right? Because we can just continue to work the same way we're working today. So you already have option one option, do nothing, continue working the same way. So you can never go into into this kind of meetings with one option, because do nothing is already an option. So we're going with like 2 or 3 options, and you'll be guided through how you come up with the options. We'll go through that shortly as well. You come up with your options, and because there's just different ways that you see the options, like do nothing, do something small, do something medium, do something big. Those are your options, and they all have different pricing point, different things that they can fix for us. So we want to make sure that we have feasible requirements. Okay, we're not looking to meet all requirements. It's not possible, right? There will be some requirements that doesn't make any sense, right? You're like, okay, you're telling me to give you a solution that is £1 million, but our budget is 500K. We can't do it. It doesn't make any sense. So it's not a feasible requirement. You want to check that your requirements are feasible and they make sense. And if they don't, just speak to the stakeholder about it. So we want to negotiate. We don't want to avoid anything. We want to negotiate. Speak to them about it, because you need those people, right? So they need to know, think that you've got their best interest at heart, right? That's the idea. So before we go for break, which is We're tracking well to time, by the way. What are the skills that you need to be a successful BA? We'll talk around it. We'll take questions, then we'll take break. So all of you you need to start understanding this quite well. Okay, so the three main category of skill sets that we need to be a successful anything is you need to have a professional knowledge in and around that whatever it is that you're going to do. You need to have your own personal knowledge, so your own personal qualities, and then you need to have some sort of business knowledge, right? So basically the IT knowledge, the business knowledge, and the personal knowledge makes you a type of person and a type of business analyst, right? So a good BA could be the differences between us making good, poor, or great investments into the organization. How good you are at bringing people together and at asking the right questions could be the difference, right? So we don't jump to conclusions. We want to actually go through like a systematic approach. The way I like to do things, this means personally, I try and make everything mechanical, right? If it's mechanical, it has a structure, then it becomes a cookie cutting exercise. That's the way I operate. Basically, I want to find the most laziest way to deliver the task, but effectively. The most laziest way to deliver the most efficiency is the way I want to operate. So basically, spend the least amount of time on something, but the output is top notch, right? And we'll coach you accordingly, right? So BAs, we are individuals that are adaptable, right? Adaptability is one of our key skills. We are bringing a broad range of skills together that other people, typically speaking, don't have to deliver a solution. So personal qualities. We're talking about how you interact with people. We're talking about the general skills that you need to be able to actually collaborate within an organization, right? Who you are as a person. How do you build rapport with people? Then you have your business knowledge, which is having a good understanding of of an organization or of a domain sector. So we all have different business knowledge at the moment. So Abby has financial crime, KYC, business knowledge. Kristen has automotive industry knowledge. Douglas has healthcare knowledge. Kelly has construction knowledge. Ola also has NHS and healthcare sector knowledge. Ayo has quite a bit. I've been doing this for a minute, but at the moment, I would say cybersecurity knowledge, right? So we all have different business domain that we're experts of, right? And that will drive the way your CV actually goes or where your CV goes. That's the way it works. Your CV, typically speaking, will go to words where your business domain knowledge is. And you will find yourself attracting roles within that industry, most likely, and outside of it as well. But if there's a role going within that industry, you'll find yourself your CV attracted to it first before they look at other type of CVs. Then you have your professional techniques. So these are techniques that are specific to a role of a BA. Okay, so it differentiates a BA from other roles. So when you're looking at those type of roles, there are certain things that a BA does that differentiates them from any other role. So those are it's related to that profession only. Okay. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take